90% of founders tell us that they don't have a chief financial officer. Why? They say they're too expensive, too conservative, and quite often they're just too scary. In this episode of the Business Alchemist podcast, we're going to be exploring an AI solution that could be about to solve the CFO problem. So, let me introduce my guest, Ian Randolph. Ian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Phil. I'm delighted to be here. It's going to be a great one.
Fantastic. So let me give Ian a proper introduction because Ian's got lots of experience. Ian is the CPO of Nume. Now, I hope I've pronounced that properly. Excellent. Okay. And CPO, for anyone who doesn't know, is the Chief Product Officer. A UK startup building the world's first AI CFO for founders. Ian's been building cutting-edge software for the past 15 years, including AI products. His highlights from a career perspective are very impressive, helping to drive Trainline's $2 billion IPO as the product lead for data science, amongst other roles, and accidentally, now this is a bit of a challenge, accidentally helping Cambridge Analytica sway the elections for Brexit and Trump in 2016. Now, clearly, this is not a political podcast, but please don't switch off if you don't like Trump and you're pro-EU and staying in Brexit. Ian lives amongst the sheep in the Cotswolds with his wife and 3 daughters, who collectively consume 110% of his time and money when he's not working in Nume. So again, Ian, welcome.
So delighted to be here. Thanks. That's one of the best intros I've ever gotten. Touched.
Fantastic. So Ian, how about if we just kick off with some background context? Yeah. I've had many founders, chief execs talk to me about AI, and one of the first questions they ask is, Phil, is it real? Do we really have to take it seriously? So how about if we just kick off by just let's talk around that. How real is AI, and do the founders, the business owners out there have to take AI seriously?
Well, in short, yes, but I very much understand the perspective. Having been in AI and machine learning for all of my career, I have been very skeptical and needed to very much manage my expectations with founders that I've worked with around what artificial intelligence can do. And what people fail to appreciate is the power of exponentials, that AI is an exponential technology, that it has been on this modest curve for a while, and we've seen, GPT 3.5, that's impressive, and GPT 4.0, that's impressive. But once it hits an inflection point, it's game over. And what most in finance have not yet caught on to yet is that AI has hit an inflection point in terms of being able to do finance incredibly well. Just to tie this a little bit into our story, when I joined Nume, we were trying to play with AI, the team that had been working on the product before, which was a different product, trying to play with AI, trying to get it to do a very basic financial task, which was variance analysis. Go through the P&L, look at, compare with budget and compare with the actual and see what was the difference and what is the meaning of this. It should be reasonably straightforward with AI, but GPT 3.5, it just couldn't hack it. It just kept hallucinating. But there was this shift that happened in June of last year, and there was the launch of Claude 3.5 Sonnet. And we saw it. I remember I went up to my CEO. I was playing with 3.5 Sonnet, and I ran through it some prompts, which before had totally failed. And I showed it to my CEO, and he said, holy shit, this is better than our finance people. This is better than human. And when we first saw that breakthrough, we're like, oh my God. And it happened. It didn't work one day, and then it did work the next day. And over the last year, I've had a series of, every so often, there'll be a week when everything will change because there'll be some new technological advancement, some new improvement in AI, which is suddenly absolutely blown it out of the water, to the point where what we're seeing is, with building an AI CFO, if we look at the whole job description of what a CFO does, and we imagine every part of the job description as a task or a prompt or an accountability, it used to be that AI couldn't reliably handle hardly any of them. We're now looking at a situation where, with the speed of the exponentials, AI can handle virtually all of them. And it's a terrific and it's a terrifying thing. And the implications of that is some of what I really want to get into with you on this podcast.
Fantastic. So perhaps what we should start with, because that background that you've painted, for some people, they may not understand some of the terminology. So, for example, an exponential technology. I've actually read the book, well, two of the Exponential Organizations by Salim Ismail. Yeah. So I read both of them, and I read them a few years after I just left infrastructure as a service cloud startup that exited for quite a large amount of money, and I didn't realize that yeah, it was a lot of money. Yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't mine.
Congrats.
But you know,
you put it on the CV.
Yeah, definitely. But what I didn't realize at that point was that was perhaps the start of some of the exponential awareness and understanding as to what was happening. So that was when all the Silicon Valley like 2.0 companies were coming out. And the book Exponential Organizations talks a lot about the capability of exponential technologies and it being 10xing the capability of lots of other techs. So do you want to, from your perspective, explain what you mean by exponential technology?
What I mean by exponential technology is that there are attributes of the technology which get better and better at nonlinear rates. If we're just thinking about code and writing better code, there's a reasonably linear stepwise process. We have one framework, someone writes a better framework, and then things proceed step by step by step. But what we're seeing with this technology, with AI, is that intelligence is laddering up. And each innovation makes the next innovation even bigger and more frequent. And it started with this breakthrough. I mean, I'll start the narrative from this past summer around June when 3.5 Sonnet was released. There was this breakthrough in the quality of the reasoning that these technologies were able to do. And then there was this breakthrough that came towards the end of the year with the release of these reasoning models, where you asked these models to think before they speak, and you just get this incredible chain of thought with these incredible responses. And each of these build on one another, because when you ladder up the reasoning and you start to network these agents, then all of a sudden the intelligence gets amplified another order of magnitude. Because what one agent can do is amazing, but what if you network several agents in terms of teams? And what we're seeing is that it used to be that if there was some kind of problem that was just technically impossible, like you would spend like 6 months thinking about it, and you'd really try to make a real technical breakthrough, and you just can't solve that many unsolvable problems as a startup, right? You're generally laddering off other people's work. But us, I mean, we've got a case which just doesn't work, and all of a sudden you plug in 3.7 and you create a React loop around it, by 3.7 being Claude Sonnet 3.7. It's one of the latest base models. Oh my God, the term we have in AI is you feel the AGI. You start to sense this uncanny sense of incredible intelligence behind it. And I really want to talk about how AI is going to change the world and how it's going to project this out. And I'm not sure whether we really want to get into that now, but exponential technologies, sort of like the Industrial Revolutions, have a way of not just changing the products and services that we use, but changing our entire society. And my perspective, not having lived through the Industrial Revolution or the early internet, but even just looking at the pace of change now, this is one of those technologies that is going to change the world more than anything else in some very exciting and some very scary ways.
Well, that's a very interesting little little piece of background. So you've mentioning the Industrial Revolution. Um,
Mm,
and I've read a few books about the impact back then. And when we think about the introduction of electricity, apparently when
mm,
electricity was introduced, something like 75% of the world's top companies went out of business. Now, they didn't go out of business
mm,
because they weren't able to use electricity. They went out of business because they weren't able to apply it in the way in which the innovative
mm,
companies were. And then
yes,
jumping forward another 100 years, and we started to see with digital transformation a similar thing happening. So almost like 20 years ago,
absolutely.
digital transformation comes in, and again, I think 50% of the world's like Fortune 100 went out of business or were like bought
Yes.
out because they just weren't able to adapt to digital transformation. So, are you saying, Ian, that this is like this, but even more?
Exactly like that. Having, I would say the previous wave of tech was digital transformation. That was a lot of the product work that I did earlier on in my career. It was taking manual paper-based process and digitizing them, either in a financial context or in a medical context or in an advertising context, and just creating rules-based systems which replicated the way what people were doing when they were shuffling papers. What is incredible about the AI revolution is that it's not just replacing the tools, but it's replacing the people using the tools. I think about the $2 trillion service sector, and I see most of that going the way of AI, or at least being highly leveraged by AI, where teams of individuals that were using tools, they're not just going to get new tools, they're going to get new tools, and the tools can use themselves in order to solve problems for customers directly.
Hmm. So I guess there'll be some people listening to this and thinking, as you said earlier on, uh, it's almost terrifying. Um, I heard, I heard something recently. There was a recent article about, I think it was the chief exec of Spotify, who was saying that unless you can prove that um, AI isn't able to do this task that you're looking to recruit for, then he's not going to authorize the additional recruitment. So what you're saying is
That is
yeah, and that's real.
indeed because what he's pointing to is that a job description is actually just a really good prompt. What is a job description? It's a set of tasks. And if you give that task to the right multi-agent system, which has enough intelligence and is plugged into the right data sources and has the right evals whereby you can test and learn to do it, you can get AI to do that task. Because it's a task, it's written down. Now the idea of designing the task and higher level strategy and what direction should we take that, that is still the function of human intuition, and that's where the value is going to be created. But these jobs, I truly believe that the only jobs that are going to be left in 10 years are the jobs that we create ourselves. That and the ones that are working on the fundamental technology, because jobs themselves are all about they were created during the Industrial Revolution because we needed a place in the system. There was a system, and you were supposed to fit that role. It had nothing to do with you and your own talents or dreams or uniqueness. No, there was a round pet. There's a round hole, and you needed to put yourself in it because that's what the system demanded. But now that's any job description is actually just a set of prompts. The only jobs that are going to be left are the ones where we end up having to create new value ourselves, and that's the entrepreneurial journey.
Mm.
And so this is my vision of the future, or the stakes under which I wake up thinking about every single day and operate under. Right now, there's around 500 million founders in the world, business owners. And these business owners are struggling with finance. 90% of them, 90% of SMEs at least, do not have a full-time finance person. They're doing a lot of this themselves with the help of a bookkeeper, usually an underpaid, not particularly invested bookkeeper, and they are suffering. And there is something there. But what AI is doing is that it's pushing people out because it is taking our jobs, but it's also pulling people in by empowering people to realize their dreams in new ways. I see Nume as one of these sets of tools that make true entrepreneurship, truly productizing yourself, in Naval Ravikant's words, accessible. You no longer need to learn how to code. You can vibe code. You can pick that up in a couple of days. You no longer necessarily need to learn how to design or do graphic design. 4.0 does incredible image generation. And now you don't even need to learn how to do finance because Nume will handle all of this for you. All that is left, if you can learn to master these tools, is to just productize your own uniqueness. Take your own passions, your own absolutely unique DNA and life experience, and channel that into a valuable product or service that people are going to enjoy and appreciate. And that's all you have to do, because everything else should be handled for you by AI. And if we make this transition, as I believe that this 500 million number is kind of 3 to 4x over the next 10 years, everyone's going to be a founder, if only as a side hustle. If we make this transition where we all figure out how to productize ourselves and to become great founders ourselves and to create our own jobs, then we're in this utopian Star Trek-like future where everyone's doing their thing and AI is doing all of the stuff which we already know how to do. Everyone's just being creative, which is amazing. If we don't make that transition and people don't learn to master these tools, then AI is going to take our jobs and there's going to be nothing left. We will be slaves or wards of the state. So it's either Star Trek or Dune. Choose. And we see ourselves as fundamentally aligned with the Star Trek timeline. That's everyone who comes on with Nume is voting for this founder-focused future in which everyone can be a founder, everyone can productize themselves, and finance is just one of the things that they no longer need to worry about.
Wow. So that's like a picture of the ultimate agency, the agency of humans. Now, I guess the follow-up question that I would ask, and clearly, as you've said, there's going to be lots of development, and it's going to the development will accelerate over time. So, but one of the things that you said at the beginning of that little explanation was that as long as the person who's using the agents knows what data sources to capture. Now, in the early days, in the next, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, as you're rolling this kind of stuff out, and we'll go into detail about your actual system, your AI system and how it works. I guess there'll be a lot of founders who'll be thinking, well, hang on, I don't really know anything about finance. Or I might have gone and done an MBA, and I might have the high level understanding, but the nuts and bolts of actually running finance, I don't really. So are you suggesting that the agents that you have, that you're actually marketing right now, are able to help founders who don't have that background?
That's exactly what we're trying to do. And that's the reason why of all the fintech which has been built, it's never penetrated the founder market, because it's primarily been designed for finance people, to help finance people do their jobs. Whereas founders have basically been stuck with Excel, which is accessible, but you can only take it so far. And even if you are a financial wizard and you can do your own modeling and everything like that, it's not a good use of founder time. The opportunity cost of that is too high. So what we are trying to build with Nume is we're trying to build the most intelligent, accessible finance thought partner. Those are the two axes. The accessibility is what enables, what we hope, every single founder on this planet to be able to use it to manage their finances. And the intelligence just means that it's actually good enough to be a true AI CFO. And that's hard enough. The intelligence is more of a technical challenge and a domain challenge, and that has only just become possible. But where we distinguish ourselves from, say, other FP&A players or financial planning and analysis tools that are trying to use AI to help people do finances, we're trying to make it extremely accessible for founders, that you don't need to know finance. And this is where I think I'm really glad that I joined the company, because the company that I joined, which was Scale Up Finance, has been around for 4 years already. And it was founded by a whole bunch of ex-founders who hated managing their finances, and a whole bunch of ex-finance consultants from Big Four and other firms who knew that problem from the other side. But I came on last summer as a total finance rookie. I've worked in many industries, health tech, advertising, logistics, retail, but I've never actually worked in fintech. And I thought, what am I doing here? Why am I working on this? Don't you want a finance expert? It's like, no, no, no. We want someone who's going to make a product that's going to be accessible to finance idiots like you. I thought, okay, I can stand in that. And so
Yeah.
we've built a process whereby you can talk to Nume the same way you do with a human. So it's accessible via Slack or via email. You can just email it, it'll email you back answers, and you can forward that on to your investors or wherever you got the answers from, or your suppliers. You can Slack it whenever you want, and it will update you with issues that it's found or financial problems which you need to look at, or basically anything you need to worry about. Nume will Slack you if there's any issue. And that's one of the key things. Like, most founders don't know what finance questions to ask. How would they? They're not in the domain, which is why Nume comes up with a set of proactive tasks, which is like, here are all of the questions you should be asking based on everything that we know about your business, based on everything that we know about you as a founder, your personality, your level of finance competence, and based on everything that we have understood from your actual financial data in terms of where are the weak points, where are the strong points in your business. And from that, finally, you no longer need to run this yourself. Nume is proactively looking after you. And that's the magic of these multi-agent systems that are available now, is that every problem is now an agent. And if you layer up these agents, then there's no problem that they can't be solved. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It was the exact hope, to let anyone, regardless of their finance competency, manage their finances with confidence.
So that's something that I didn't really fully appreciate. That it sounds as though you're saying that, so as well as the AI being able to handle the data, the financial structures, the reporting requirements, it's also, it sounds like, a coach.
Yes. Because this is what founders want. They don't just want something that does tasks. The language I keep hearing from founders that I speak to who are using our services, I love Nume because it's a thought partner, right? Being a founder is incredibly lonely, and financial data is oftentimes so private that you can't really talk about it with others except for your co-founders, who maybe you don't have any co-founders, maybe they're really, really busy. So it becomes this it really becomes a kind of a partner, a kind of a friend, a kind of an advisor that just, and the reason why, you wouldn't just get this from, say, Claude or ChatGPT out of the box is the depth of its integrations and the strength of its cognitive architecture to be able to actually answer these questions accurately. Because if you just throw a finance question to Claude, throw it a spreadsheet, it'll get it right like maybe 70, 80% of the time. To actually engineer this system for a broad set of finance use cases to get it right like 95, 99% of the time, this is the hard part. And this is what we and our team have been working on for the past several months, to get that guaranteed accuracy that you can actually trust it. You can be like, and you can certainly trust it more than a human. I think that's the thing. It doesn't have to be perfect, because humans aren't perfect. It just has to be better than how they're doing it today.
Okay. So the other question that comes to mind then, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, okay, so most founders are at the stage where they're either raising money, either seed money or they're going through the different rounds of raising funding. And when they get to the stage where they're really looking to raise serious VC money, at that point, don't they really need somebody sitting next to them who really does get it, rather than a number of agents who, yes, have been coaching them and giving them the answers, but when you're in the hothouse of sitting and pitching to VCs or being grilled by VCs, is there not a requirement for a human person at that point?
I'd say for now, yes, because the good thing for humanity about AI is that it's a truism that humans plus AI are more effective and more reliable than humans on their own and AI on their own. And so for certain very high, let's say, one-off use cases, having a human, particularly one who's literate in AI, to guide you through it can certainly be helpful. But I'd say it's just a matter of time. We just went through a big raise. When I looked at creating a data room, we looked at creating a forecast. So like every single one of these tasks that went into this, that can just be a subgraph. The agents just need to be plugged into the right data, prompted appropriately, put in the right loops, And it should be able to do it because there's no problem that we have found yet that has not been amenable to this multi-agent approach with the agents as they are today. So there is and there will always be a place for humans to some extent, because humans plus AI will always be ahead of the curve. But I do believe that it's a matter of time, and perhaps the future looks more like a small number of fractional CFOs who are able to serve tons and tons and tons of clients. AI just gives them extraordinary leverage. But eventually, if you look at the regularity of their tasks and what they do, it's like eventually AI can do that as well. So for now, it's a good bet to use someone. But
okay,
in the future,
but in the future, maybe not. Okay, well that's fascinating. So if we could take this forward a little bit again, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, well, there's going to be a time when then most founders, you've said it yourself, most founders will have their AI agents working for them. So when we get to that stage, we've got founders with their agents, probably across a number of different functional departmental areas, competing against other founders. Do you see a future then when we're in the place where the agents are really good enough to really support the founder in being a true, having full agency and full entrepreneurial creativity mode? What happens when you've got all of the founders competing against other founders who have all got agents themselves?
It is such a good question. I have this hypothesis you actually just made me realize that I think the reason why there is competition is that because there's a limitation on capital, all of the founders are generally chasing bigger problems. And so the only way you're going to get funded by a VC is if you tackle a bigger problem. And if it's a bigger problem, it's a problem which likely other founders are aware of, and therefore you end up competing with them. And yes, just like with as it's always been, technology is an advantage. And if you are riding better technology, you have an advantage over someone who's competing for the same goal. However, what I see here is that the future is people are going to be tackling smaller problems individually that are really, really meaningful for them. So I'll share somewhat vulnerably. I've had a dream for maybe the last 15 years, maybe 20 years. I remember when I told my wife about this. But I also have, we were talking earlier about a guest you had who had ADHD and autism. I also deal with that. I think I'm reasonably high functioning now, but I really struggle with I really get down at times. I get into a funk, into a loop where just like a negative emotion comes in and I just can't shake it. I just end up avoiding and avoiding and avoiding. And I've always wanted like an AI system or a system which was going to basically unfunk me, that understood what it is I really valued, understood my goals, and in particular understood like my kind of unique spiritual influences, who could be a little bit of a proxy for like who I am, like spiritually, and like can really try and evoke my higher self and get me out of that. Now, I think if I don't do this, there's probably a good likelihood that no one's going to do it, just because it's so specific to like my unique spiritual interests, my unique kind of issues that I've had in my life. And I think that everyone has ideas like that. Everyone has some problem which is really, really important specifically to them. And that problem is probably not, before AI, just like it's just been sitting on the shelf for so many years, because like, what am I going to do? It's like, how am I going to get the time to put together the pitch decks, to get the funding, to actually be able to pursue this? Because that's what it used to require in order to pursue these ideas. But now I can vibe code a prototype in 2 hours. I can, push out my marketing in an automated way. I can use Nume to manage my finances when it comes to the business plan of how the revenue models actually work. Like, I am so much more empowered. And I believe the future is going to be a lot more founders like that, a lot more founders working on problems that they're extremely personally passionate about because they can, rather than founders who are trying to chase more thinking backwards about trying to chase what is the biggest prize, trying to chase what they think that VCs will fund. And so I don't think there's going to be the same kind of competition that there used to be, in the same way that, like, is there competition between artists? It's like, yes, to a certain extent, but artists are also inimitable. And I believe entrepreneurs, when they truly step into their authenticity, are the same.
Wow. So what you're painting then is a picture of, rather than this being a world where AI takes all the jobs, you're saying your vision is, and I guess lots of people like you, your vision is that this could actually expand our, well, almost like a consciousness to the point that the many, many more people are able to be creative, to be innovative. And I guess
Yes.
that's why you're painting the future as Star Trek rather than
Yes.
Dune. Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
Hmm. And the other thing that comes to mind then, so that's a very attractive vision. However, for the average person, how does the average person watching this, and when I say an average person, it's likely to be a business person, may not be a founder,
Mm.
but someone
Yeah.
who's really interested in the ideas that you're promoting. How would they go about getting access to agents in order to develop their ideas that you've like the ideas the way you've painted, like for example having a coach that can help you when you're in a funk, or a coach that can help you like from a sporting perspective, for example. How would they go about researching that and trying to figure out whether they could do that themselves now, or is it still a little bit way off in the future?
I think it's just now becoming possible. And what we in the AI community, those that are at the cutting edge, is we are looking to see how quickly we can replicate what is effectively the economy of jobs. So if we look at coding, for instance, which was a big barrier to developing ideas or products for a lot of people because it was a very, very high skill cap, there are some tools right now which make it almost embarrassingly easy, not to maintain and to build extremely complex products, but usually to build one's personal vision, which is oftentimes not super complex. And if it is, you can still do it a lot more quickly with AI. You could use tools like Cursor or Windsurf to develop code very quickly, or even tools like Lovable or Replit, where you're really just vibe coding. You don't need to actually code anything. You just say what it is you want. A multi-agent system codes up the prototypes, and then you just modify it from there. And then beyond that, so that's the coding side of things. On the creativity side of things, GPT 4.0, their new image release, is absolutely gobsmackingly incredible. Like you can just create photorealistic images of enormous quality very, very quickly. Like there's almost nothing that you can imagine that it cannot put an image to. These new versions, and that's just one of many image gen or video gen solutions that are already out there. There are lots of other solutions from Stable Diffusion, many others that already do that. And then there's all of the I guess there's all of the other operational parts of running a business. So there's sales automation. There's some amazing services that create these voice agents who will basically do sales and customer service for you. Like they will actually call, and you can have a really impressively realistic conversation with them where you understand the products better and what to do about them and then whether to buy them. And then, if for instance, you want to talk to another agent because you want to understand how support works, the agent will literally say, excuse me, I'm going to call, Jesse here, and then totally different agent, totally different voice, totally different knowledge base can then come in and then fill that in. There's finance, there's marketing, there's an enormous number of marketing tech things. There's AI SDRs, there's AI BDRs. There's every single role that you used to need to have capital for, to hire for, you can now get for, with the side money that you have from the side of your job. And so now is the time. There are people that are building their dreams right now, and we want to support those people with Nume.
That's fantastic. And I guess in many ways, you're in the center of that because you are working, you're supporting founders right now, and founders who have got hopes and dreams about changing society with their products and services for the future. So you're at that cutting edge right now. And with
Exactly.
regard to that, and with regard to that, how advanced, how ready is it now? Ian. So, is the CFO for AI, is it really ready now, or is it still just a few months away? What's the status?
It depends on your definition of ready. There are levels to agents. So if top of the agent's hierarchy of competence is like true AGI, that can literally just do anything at human levels, and bottom is rules-based systems, there's about 5 or 6 levels depending on which framework you look at. And right now, where Nume is at least is I would call it at level 4, which you could think of it as almost functional AGI for finance tasks, which means that it can consistently do better than human performance for a large number of finance tasks. Now, the task space of what CFOs do is particularly broad. It's the top of a hierarchy of competence. It's not just replacing a bookkeeper. It's not just replacing a controller. It's not just replacing a modeling expert or a forecaster. It's not just replacing a strategic financial partner. It's replacing in some ways all of those, because that's what a CFO can do. A CFO, because they're at the top of the hierarchy of competence, they have some competency in all of those skills. And while each one of those, I just really see it as a matter of time. So for instance, right now with our unbounded system, we can deliver pretty good bookkeeping reports, whereby if you just ask, hey, how's my bookkeeping? Give it a minute, you can see its reasoning, and it'll come back with like, you're about 6 out of 10 on this, 7 out of 10 on that, and you have these transactional issues, this, that, and the other. And it's a good response. Now, if we were to create a specialized subgraph for bookkeeping, whereby we really, really go deep on all of the tasks that like a really good financial controller does, we can get the output of that question from, say, and totally accurate, but like an 8 out of 10 in terms of like, this is amazing, to like a 10 out of 10 in terms of like, wow, this is better than what I'd be getting from most human financial controllers. And so it's just a matter of building out the subgraph. So what it does right now, it does at an extraordinary level. Does it do everything that a CFO does yet? No. But we see the path very, very clearly of effectively beefing out its skill tree and exactly how we're going to do that. But it's certainly good enough for beta users. It's currently in beta, being used by many founders. And it's just really, really exciting to co-create with them and learn more specifically what it is they need. Because there's a huge, obviously, it's a role that's been in existence for a long time, this CFO. And therefore, it's not something which we're just going to absolutely, replace overnight. But we're going to, I'd say we're making good progress.
So you mentioned the different levels between true AGI. I'd actually never heard of AGI. I hadn't heard that term. What does that stand for?
Artificial general intelligence. So not necessarily a specialized agent, but like a super entity that is great at everything.
Got you. And you mentioned Nume was at level 4. So true AGI,
yes.
What's that top level? Is that level 5 or 10 or what?
I think that it's more like level 6, but the level, the next thing for Nume is allowing Nume to act autonomously. So for the moment, Nume responds to prompting from founders, and it can also prompt itself with a set of scheduled prompts, because we want it to be really transparent for founders so they know what they're doing. The next step, however, and what is eminently already possible today, is you give Nume access, like login access to your ERP. You give them email access to all of your suppliers, and you actually allow it to autonomously optimize for a particular variable. And that variable might be, help me achieve my financial goals for the year. And you set certain parameters around what it can and can't do. But if you just give it the action space, there are agents today that will go off and autonomously email suppliers and ask it to renegotiate their contracts. It'll email investors if you empower it to do so, to improve those relationships. It will go into your ERP directly and clean up any issues, the same way that a real CFO is. So the next stage is autonomy. For now, it's an extraordinarily reliable workflow, which handles the vast majority, or at least will soon handle the vast majority of finance workflows. But soon it's autonomy, and AGI is effectively autonomy across domain, whereby it doesn't matter whether it's finance or any domain. It can just do everything brilliantly. It's like the Jarvis sort of future. That there's no question that Tony Stark can ask Jarvis that Jarvis isn't going to be able to handle.
Okay, so my guess is you would possibly be suggesting to founders that if you want to be ahead of the curve, or at least not falling behind, now is the time to start learning how these agents actually work. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would be looking at, I would just start playing with it, get curious about it. And there's a fear factor to get over, because as soon as you get into it, it, it triggers all kinds of emotions when working with AI. There's sort of wonder, there's impressiveness, but then there's also, there's fear. And, yeah, in the words of, this is the positive part of Dune. So I must not fear. Fear is the
Yeah.
mind killer. And if we can
Yes.
just get past that fear, then we
Yeah.
realize that we can be the masters of artificial intelligence rather than artificial intelligence being the masters of us. And there's never been a better time to learn.
That makes sense. Okay. So would you mind just giving us a little bit of history as to
Hmm.
how did, and I'm not sure how you want to play this, either you or Nume, how did you get to this point? What was the kind of the birth from the idea to the point where you're actually now in the marketplace, raising funding? You've got beta. How did you get here? Because I think that will give our viewers some indication as to what the development path for you guys was, and potentially what that could mean for other people, on a similar journey.
It's a great question, and I'm happy to be able to tell a story that is full of failure and missteps, so that every founder feels good about themselves. That there are no straightforward paths to success to whatever extent that we've achieved that. So, Scale Up Finance is the parent company of Nume, or it is effectively the legal entity behind the product Nume, and it was founded 4 years ago by a whole bunch of ex-founders and ex-finance consultants because they knew that founders hated finance. No one builds a business to end up building spreadsheets, and the fundamental insight that the founders at that time realized was that finance is this toxic cocktail of negative emotions for founders. First off, it engenders a whole bunch of frustration because it takes up really valuable time that you should be using other things, anywhere from 1 to 5 days a month, depending upon the sophistication of your month-end close and your financial process. It's really frustrating because oftentimes you're dealing with low-skilled bookkeepers who make mistakes and you have to correct them, and you're like, oh my goodness, can I just get this to work? And it's really frustrating because founders are idea machines. We're all idea machines, but founders have leaned into that. And founders have so many ideas for how they can improve their business. What if we changed pricing? What if we created this new product? What if we created this employee incentive scheme? There's so many what if questions which founders have. But how are they going to do that? They're going to take, 2 days to build an Excel model, or they're going to ask their finance hire, if they have one, to take a week to do that. It's like there's no good way of founders processing their frustration. And then there's fear. Fear of fucking up, because it's very possible that people can run out of money. Fear of looking bad, looking stupid in front of an investor who knows what they're talking about. And there's just general fear of the unknown. What don't I know about finance? And then there's a whole bunch of shame involved in it too. So many founders have told me, like, I don't even want to, even if I have finance people, I don't even want to ask them because I want to look stupid, right? It's this arcane language which is like unnecessarily complicated, and founders just it creates this feeling of inadequacy whenever they kind of get into this space, even if they know really well, because finance people tend to be, they can be a certain way. So this is the problem which we set out to solve, and the alternatives are not good. It's a spreadsheet, which is painful, an FP&A software, not founder friendly, designed for finance people, and it's hiring, it's fractional CFO. And if you've got 4 figures to shell out, which is where our original focus, it's great, but not many had the ability to do that. So before AI was really there, the founders created a tech-enabled service business. And over the last 4 years, they've hired and worked with well over 30 CFO partners, part-time CFOs, using a platform which enabled them to deliver services extremely quickly and effectively, and served over 300 startups. So we really got a great understanding of the problem. Problem is that services don't scale. Great finance people are hard to come by, and continuing to grow sales at the same time as you grow capacity while keeping quality high is just a really difficult part of any agency business, even if it's tech enabled. And then, of course, we also built a financial platform, but it was very much focused on serving our CFO partners. It wasn't something which founders really wanted to use. So that's where we were come summer of last year. So I joined the business in May, and my remit as the new CPO was to pivot this company into a product-focused culture and to put us on a unicorn timeline. Because right now we were not a unicorn timeline. We had a profitable, growing service business and a tech product which wasn't really going anywhere. And it was just when I joined that Sonnet 3.5 came out, and I suddenly, it hit me. And of course, I did all the product discovery things. I talked to 17 customers, and I did a ton of interviews, a ton of conversations, really got immersed in it. But it just became very, very clear after all of that the AI CFO was what we were always meant to do. And from there, we completely dropped the prior platform. We dove straight into AI. We're lucky to have a really, really great team, although no one is really an AI expert. We didn't really bring in any. We just learned as we went. But as we learned as we went, because we started early and we did a lot of studying, we ended up getting to the edge pretty quickly. And so we built a great prototype that we released in November. But we realized then that this just wasn't good enough. That wasn't what founders wanted. We built what they knew the AI was good enough to do at that time, which was reporting and variance analysis. But ultimately, founders wanted the whole skill tree. That was the feedback we kept getting from alpha users. And so it really puzzled us what we could do until the revelations of the power of multi-agent cognitive architectures, of networking LLMs together, and the power of these new reasoning models that when we did a test or a prototype of a new multi-agent system, we found, oh my God, this is it. This is going to do it. And so since then, we did a big sort of relaunch or rewrite in Q1 of this year. And now we are back in front of founders, our alpha users, and our beta users. We're lucky enough to have, through a marketing campaign on our website, got a wait list of 2,200 founders from all around the world. And we're now pulling those founders off of the wait list and making them beta customers and learning with them exactly what part works, what part doesn't, and making sure that what we have scales. And once we have that validation, and once we have worked out the teething issues, then it's time for a BFL, a big FN launch. And then we hope to join the ranks of other European unicorns who have gotten really, really big lately just off of creating a really exciting new product. Folks like Lovable, folks like Bolt. We think we've got a really, really good shot at being the next big European success story. Because if you Google AI CFO today, Nume is the top hit. And all the other hits that are on there on Google are just articles about how AI is changing the CFO role. For whatever reason, we've been blessed, partly for whatever reason, probably because we've been delivering AI CFO services for the last few years. We really understand the space, and we happen to be first. So extremely blessed to be in this position.
That sounds like you're in a very, very strong position then. Now, I guess like any other startup, there's always challenges along the way. And you know, I've not come across any founder who said, "Oh we set our plan and we hit all of our milestones, and you know, everything was fab." So, what would you say have been the top 2 or 3 challenges in really getting to where you want to be, or moving to that next level, so that you can actually feel confident that you've got something that's going to be really commercially viable?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and that's what I think about every day. It keeps me up at night. There are 3 big challenges in particular which keep me up at night. One is simply the feasibility challenge. You know, when we set off to build this multi-agent system, we thought we could have a prototype out like in a few weeks because it seemed relatively straightforward. But what's happening right now, the AI space we're definitely on the upward part of the Gartner hype cycle. Like, there are new products, there are new frameworks, there are new solutions coming out literally every single week. And it's not clear which ones are the best ones. And even if you pick some of the more popular ones, for instance, we adopted LangGraph and Langsmith, which is one of these multi-agent frameworks that has been used by some of the other big unicorns like Replit. However, it's technically still in beta, and it breaks all the time. This stuff is incredibly hard, particularly because no one's done it before. In some ways, it's incredibly easy because, compared to if we were to try to get the same results with traditional coding, it just wouldn't be possible. But to deliver on people's expectations now for what AI can be, it's really, really hard. This getting the cognitive architecture right takes a huge amount of time. And one of the problems related to that is that it's an unbounded product. If you put a UI in front of someone, there's a certain number of things you can do. Like it's a deterministic set of user paths, and as long as you get those right, then you have something that works. You can ask Nume any question under the sun. And yes, there's certain themes of questions, right? Because we understand like what the finance domain looks like and what the tasks are. But I get surprised every single conversation I have with the founder. They've got a new prompt they want to try. They've got a new thing. And how do you build in quality when it is unbounded, a true unbounded product? Well, to that we're investing a lot in evals, which are effectively automated tests for quality, which run across our system regularly. But that has a lot. That is really, really hard to, really, really hard to. And finally, the other big challenge is and this is something which will be very interesting for those who are trying to build AI products themselves, is that there's effectively a new role within a tech team. There used to just be this product management who defines stories and developers who deliver these stories. Now there's this role of the prompt engineer. And the prompt engineer is a subject matter expert in whatever domain that you're trying to build an agent in. And so, if you're trying to build a coding agent, that works out well because developers are already subject matter experts in coding. They could prompt the agent themselves. But you're trying to build a finance agent, like I'm not a financial expert, and our developers aren't financial experts. They haven't spent a decade working in finance. And so we have this new role that needs to be integrated into the workflow. To a certain extent, product should do it, but then product doesn't have enough time to do anything else. So it's created this kind of new tension that is just very, very fascinating when it comes to building this. Those are the internal challenges, but the big external challenges are inertia and anxiety. Some founders have Stockholm syndrome about their spreadsheets. Like they love them. They hate them, but they love them because they built them themselves. They've lovingly tended to them all these years, and even if they hate updating them once a month or doing the exports, they're like, but I built this. This is my baby. What it's taken is strong observability from Nume, where Nume actually open sources, exposes its reasoning about how it's coming to every single financial calculation. And when founders read that, they're like, oh, that's actually pretty sophisticated. That's actually even more sophisticated than the level at which I'm thinking about it. And the more they see Nume work, the more they feel they're willing to let go. But there's this strong inertia for people who have gotten used to a solution, even if it's not a great solution, just because of the sunk cost of creating it. And then finally, it's anxiety. The biggest anxiety is it going to get it right? Right? And this is one of the biggest challenges that any system faces, because the cost of getting it wrong is very, very high. And this is what's taken so long over the past few months. It's building the system and the evals to evaluate them to ensure that it consistently delivers accurate, trustworthy results. So none of these are insurmountable, but it's certainly created a really fun adventure over these past months and year.
Wow. Okay. So you've covered quite a bit there. You've covered both the internal challenges, your internal challenges within Nume. Mm-hmm. I think you've also covered the kinds of challenges and the kinds of obstacles that founders have themselves in adopting mm-hmm. a new technology like this. Mm-hmm. What would you, so once you get to the next stage, what will be the steps you will take your new clients through? So what's the process you will take people through in order to help them make the best use of your AI CFO?
That's exactly what I've been beating my head against for the last few weeks. We've been in the midst of a high intensity onboarding design sprint, because we believe that accessibility is key, and that if you can get onboarded to Nume in minutes, as opposed to the hours for FP&A tools or sometimes months for humans, how can we actually do that? And what's been very interesting is to actually see the way that agents play in the onboarding process. So, for instance, instead of needing to write out information about your company or fill out a form, we just have agents that troll your LinkedIn and pull out the important information about, your name, your personality, because you can infer that from the way that you write, for a whole lot of psychometrics from the way that you write. We can pull out your company, your mission, all the details that a good CFO would be researching before a client call. We have agents that do that, so individuals don't have to actually touch anything. Then there's the mapping process. How do you map together the general ledger accounts at the base level of an accounting system up into management accounts and report sections that enable you to understand your business at several levels of aggregation? And that, again, used to be very something which only like experienced finance people could do, to actually map these together in sensible ways. But there's a multi-agent subgraph for that as well. And then there's the biggest value add of the onboarding process, which is coming up with your own CFO support plan. That, given what we know about your accounting system, given what we know about you and your business from what we've learned from LinkedIn, from our research, what do you need? Like, do you need daily cash reports because your business is in trouble? Or do you need weekly cash forecasts? Or do you need monthly performance reports? Or because of your industry, do you need regular regulatory risk reports or insurances reports? There's a whole set of support tasks which are very specific to many businesses, and it's what makes doing an FP&A tool at any founder very, very difficult, because these UI flows are necessarily rigid and designed. But AI is eating UI, and if AI can create the best CFO support plan for you, why would you not use it? And so, using this structure, we're hoping that you should just be straight into Nume in a matter of minutes and asking it all kinds of questions, all your burning questions that you always want to know from finance, and also getting proactively insights about your business, like benchmarking performance that you simply didn't know otherwise.
So, wow. So that sounds like that's moving really fast, and you've got a very clear process. I'm sure that's going to change over time. What's the likelihood of, no, sorry, let me step back. I know that you've got a wait list of, I think you mentioned about 2,500 founders. When will you be at the stage where you'll be fully open for business and beyond the beta stage? What's your anticipation?
We're hoping by the end of the summer. That's our substantial hope. It's an ambitious target. I think it's if you ask our dev, they'd say it's unlikely, but and they're great devs, so they're right. But it's worth. I think it's worth shooting for, because the opportunity is just so big, and founders need this. They absolutely need this. But for now, anyone who wants to sign up to Nume and join the beta program, almost everyone should receive some kind of an email with an invitation, because we really want to start onboarding founders now. Now that we've completed this new version, we want to get as much feedback as we can. Of course, it's me doing a lot of this, so there'll be limits, there'll be a queue. But anyone who wants to use Nume today can absolutely do so.
What's the process for that? Do they go onto your website or what?
Yeah, just go to nume.finance. Soon we're going to get nume.ai, but for now it's nume.finance, Nume, and just sign up right there. Sign up for the waitlist, and we'll have your details there. One thing is that we are dependent upon the ERP systems of the founders. And so right now we only work with Xero, QuickBooks, and Economic, which is a Danish system that we happen to have built. There are an enormous number of accounting softwares that are out there, and we simply cannot support them all right off the bat. So if you use Xero, if you use QuickBooks, if you happen to use Economic and you're in Denmark, please sign up. And we'd love to get you sorted out with your own version of Nume.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. And for those people out there who, I think you mentioned people who are already AI friendly. Is it still possible for people to go out there and try and do this themselves? Because I'm sure there must be not now, because you've said you guys are the only ones, but perhaps I'm sure there will be other people in the future. But if there are real geeks out there who would like to try and do this themselves, what would be your advice for them?
It's There is another possible future, which is a very interesting future, in which no one will buy software anymore. In the same way that you won't buy products anymore. In Star Trek, you've got a replicator that will just make them on demand. And there's a case to be made that in the future, these coding agents will become so good that they will code you up exactly what you need at the moment. So we're not there yet. But what people can do today, if they're experienced with this, if they're savvy with it, is they can get an MCP server, which is a bit of an API protocol between LLMs and third-party systems like accounting systems and Google Drive and any other data sources that you have. And you can plug in any data which you want analyzed through an MCP server and run an LLM through it. Now, what you're not going to get is you're not going to get the guaranteed accuracy, because that has taken a lot of time to network these agents together in such a way that they have these recursive flows to make sure that it's there. And you're not going to be able to you're just not going to have the guarantees, because that's what we do day in and day out. But if you just want to get some finance help, you can plug in your finance data to an off-the-shelf LLM and get to work today. So yeah, it's an amazing time if you're an AI hobbyist too.
Wow, amazing, fantastic. So is there anything that I've not asked you, Ian, from your experience being out there in the marketplace, that other founders have been asking that could be useful for the people who are watching this podcast today?
I suppose what I wouldn't say that there's a question that you're missing. Goodness, you've gone way deeper than I had prepared for, and it's been an amazing conversation. But what I would want to say before we close our time together is I just really want to leave founders with a profound sense of the stakes that are available. Sorry, the stakes that are there, and the hope that's available. So many founders I talk to they're not just frustrated about finance, they're resigned about finance. Like, just finance people are just expensive, they're money hungry, they don't understand me as a business, they're rigid. Finance software is just boring and uninteresting, and Excel is just super painful. And people really resign themselves. And they may have tried to play with AI, but then AI gives a wrong answer, like, I can't trust this. And I don't think what I really want is to wake founders up to the notion that it's not just across finance, but really across all domains, that there are now extraordinary agents who can really help you, who can really do the work which you don't necessarily want to be doing as a founder, so that you can do the work that only you can do as a founder. There really is hope. And that hope is so important because founders are the future. If founders don't blaze a path forward and find a way to create value in ways that are not just doing a job for someone else, because these jobs are simply going to be that they're going to be done by systems like this, then we could end up in a very scary place as a civilization. Now, I don't believe we're going there, because I believe in humanity. I believe in our ability to adapt to any situation the same way that we adapted to the Industrial Revolution, to the internet, and turn this to our good. But not everyone is free, and not everyone will make that choice. A lot of people will put their heads in the sand and say, AI, either AI doesn't exist. It's like, oh, this is just too, I just don't even want to think about it. Or AI is terrifying and scary, and it's just, I just can't even think about it. I just get anxiety whenever I even think about it, and I just can't even touch it. And I want to encourage everyone that there's a huge amount of power on the table. It's never been a better time to be a founder. It's never been a better time to rekindle the things you used to love as a child, and the ideas which you've had in the back of your mind for years. This is such an incredible time to be alive. And I want to encourage everyone so they really know that. So, more of a parting message than a parting question. Apologies for that.
No, I think that's very, very inspiring, and I think that's gone way beyond what I was hoping for from this podcast, because I think being able to tell the story that, in your words, there's never been a better time to be a founder. I think the elevated story of positioning of that same statement is, there's never been a better time to have been a human who wants to have agency, who
Yes.
wants to have agency. So
Yes,
I think that's
exactly.
I think that's
Yes.
very, very inspiring, Ian. So to be honest, I would like to really thank you for your time. This has been,
Mm,
it's been very intense, but it's been a fantastic conversation. And I really hope that founders will get in touch with you, who want to know more about your own particular CFO AI, and I guess generally as to where AI is going. So, how can people find you and follow you? Are you? I know you're quite prolific on LinkedIn, but are there any other social channels that you use?
I wish I had more creativity. That's a bit of a side project of mine to get an Instagram going that will do some funky stuff. But no, for now it's just LinkedIn, and I trying
LinkedIn.
to be as vulnerable as possible on LinkedIn. So just search for me, Ian Randolph Nume, and I'd love to connect with you.
Fantastic. And I'll make sure that the links to your LinkedIn are are contained within this transmission. So listen, Ian, thank you
Bless you.
once again. It's been amazing, and I look forward to watching your journey and hearing all about that. There's never been a better time to be a founder.
It's a beautiful world we live in. Phil, thank you for being such a wonderful presence. Thanks for bringing such positive and loving energy. You're a real treasure, and really enjoyed this conversation with you. Wonderful.
That's very, very kind of you, Ian. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
See you soon.